Hello again and welcome to Backyard Farmer. I'm Kim Todd and I'll be your host for the next hour of answering your gardening questions. We're back to answering those phone calls, so if you have a question, please dial 1-800-676-5446. We also take your questions and pictures for a future show by emailing us at byf@unl.edu. Please tell us as much as you can about what's going on, including where you live. Do make sure you follow us during the week on our social media channels, YouTube and Facebook. Right now, we are, of course, going to start with samples, and Jody, yours keep trying to crawl off the table.
Yes. I brought two different caterpillars today. I brought the monarch caterpillar and a black swallowtail caterpillar, because a lot of times people want to know what the difference is. And so the one I have in my hand right now is a monarch caterpillar. You can see the white and black and yellow, and it's got these filaments, two on the front part and then two on the back part. And the monarchs will need milkweed to lay their eggs for the larvae to eat. So the caterpillars will feed on that as a host plant. And I know Scott did a really great segment on milkweed, so go back and check that out because there are a lot of different kinds. As adults, the monarchs will feed on a lot of plants for nectar, but you want to make sure you plant that milkweed. If you're seeing other caterpillars, I'll bring this one who is pretty mature as a caterpillar now, maybe will pupate. This is a black swallowtail caterpillar. Sorry, pooping on the desk. They will be found on your fennel, your dill, and your parsley. They start off looking kind of actually like bird poo. They're like dark colored with a white saddle, and then as they mature and molt into further instars, they actually will change colors so that they're very similar to a monarch where they've got these stripes. They do have the yellow spots, and they'll have, they can look very different in all stages. So I have one that's actually more black with the yellow spots, but so they're going to need that host plant. So if you find a caterpillar, you want to make sure you identify it so that you know what to feed it and where it belongs. If you want to take it in and feed it and then watch it pupate and release it, you'll have to have that host plant. But when you take it in, you also want to put it in something that's got like a netting or a mesh or like a butterfly house so that it can attach its pupa somewhere and then be able to come out as an adult butterfly and have those wings dry, because you don't want to do all that work and then for them not to survive. So this one will turn into a black butterfly with those really pretty tails.
And you said that one is almost mature, so tonight.
Yeah, so maybe. This one, because it's leaving the host plant and wanting to wander around, that's a good indication that it's also ready to go into a pupa. If you find these little pots hanging on things outside with these gold trim, that's a monarch pupa. But this is what they do. They leave the host plant, so even if you've got them outside but you don't see them the next day, if they were large enough, they probably went somewhere safer to pupate.
All right, excellent. Thanks, Jody. All right, Terry, your debut. You're in the turf chair of all things.
Yes.
And you brought something that appears to be like a wig.
I did. So this is something that you could actually put if you're entering Mr. Potato Heads into the county fair. You could use this as part of that. But this is spotted spurge. It literally came out of my front yard. It looks like a big plant, but it's really only got one tiny little root that's very easy to pull. So when you pull it, it's very satisfying because obviously this whole thing then becomes an empty space in your landscape. The one thing that I really do warn people about that have kind of some sensitive skin issues is that this is part of the Euphorbiaceae family, so it's got like this milky sap, and you can see it when it kind of pops open right away. And some people can get some kind of damage on that, so you can kind of see it. I don't know if you can see that. And so you can kind of get some itching and maybe some dermatitis or something like that to it, but pretty easy. It's an annual, just pull it out. hopefully we'll get some rain across the state and it'll be even easier to pull out. So.
And clearly you have the kind of lawn that I do, which means there's not a whole lot of blades of grass associated.
Nope, this was actually in a perennial bed, so.
That too, a ground cover.
It was.
All right, Kyle, what do we have for rots and spots in our turf?
Well, some turf that's kind of not green. So I know I often talk about how I'm just happy that the weeds in my yard are green for the most part, but now my turf is turning white. So a couple of weeks ago, 2 weeks ago, I was cleaning out some hummingbird feeders and just randomly dumped the sugar solution under a tree. And 2 hours later, I came back and the turf was white and had this strange stuff growing on it. And we had slime mold. So I was super excited for it and was really hoping that it would survive until I was back on the show, and it did. But slime molds are very common, but they're not really anything to worry about. So we see slime molds on all sorts of materials. I know I've talked about them quite a few times on the show with random pictures and things like that, but we'll see them in mulch, we'll see them on turf, we'll see them just growing on a wooden pot. Really, they feed on dead and decaying matter when there is adequate moisture. But the important thing to remember is there's really nothing to worry about with your turf. And so this is not causing any long-term damage to the turf at all. And I think we can kind of see some of those white little pustules that are forming, or just kind of white bumps. Those are the plasmodia. But one of the really cool things about slime molds are they will move to where the moisture is. And so I dumped the hummingbird feeder solution in one area, and then I've been just adding water to another area close by, and kind of watching those slime molds move across my yard, which my wife kind of hates, but I think it's rather fascinating. And as the weather dries up or gets a little bit warmer, and we have less moisture, then this fungus just dries up and will blow away. But as you can see, we can kind of even wipe it off of the turf blade, and it's still nice and a nice healthy green underneath. So you're going to see slime molds. As best you can, just enjoy them and think of them as one of the great cool things about nature. I don't have cool caterpillars or anything like that to show, but some fun mushrooms and fungi. So
I think you need a better hobby than trying to get your slime mold to crawl across your yard.
It's an easy hobby. I don't have a whole lot of time, so it doesn't take too much time.
All right, your first picture, Jody, is first Japanese beetles got her roses, and now she's got these gray beetle-looking things on the sweet autumn clematis. What are they and what to do about them? And she is one of many, of course.
Yeah, so these are blister beetles. I would just knock them off into soapy water.
All right, that's easy enough. And then we don't know where this particular viewer is, but she's got a honeydew melon that is dying one runner at a time, and she's wondering, is this something that she can treat?
Well, this looks like honeydew's a muskmelon, right? Mm-hmm. So this could be squash vine borer. So it's the larvae of a moth that may be boring into the vines. So what you want to do is go look at the vines and see if you could see anything that looks like sawdust. And you may be able to save them. It depends how far gone they are, though.
Okay, so if she finds the creature in there.
You can cut them out and then put the soil over top to get additional roots to grow, depending on if there's enough plant that can grow back.
All right.
How long the runners are.
Your next one, this is a Lincoln viewer, found this thing eating its potatoes while he was digging them, and that is his potato fork for size comparison.
Okay, so that is the pupa of a moth. So I don't think the pupa can eat anything at that stage, and I don't know which moth it is. So I'm not sure if that is going to be related to what was eating the potatoes.
And I don't see a potato. I just see a stem of a potato.
Yeah,
so maybe another picture
pupa.
Or something else. Yeah.
Right. If you see something actually eating it, then we can identify that as the pest of the potato.
All right. And then your next one, this is a Bridgeport viewer, She said she has started losing green bean plants in the garden, so they dug down and found these unwelcome diners. So what can be done to prevent further damage?
Yeah. So this is one of the white grubs, maybe like the 3-year, because a lot of them are adults right now. So it could be a 3-year grub. They're occasional pests of beans. There's not much that you can do right now, but between this season and next season, to do some sanitation, if you till up that soil there and pull out those grubs, feed them to the birds next spring, that should get rid of them before you plant.
And if she's still losing green bean plants right now, should she dig around each one and try to find a grub?
I don't know, that seems time consuming.
She might really want those beans.
Maybe plant somewhere else.
The canned beans are a lot cheaper
Yeah.
this year.
Farmers markets.
Yep.
You can plant
Lots
some
of beans.
more.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can plant more.
All right, Terry, your first round of questions and your first turf chair debut. You have 3 from this viewer, and this is, he had some yard work done and a retaining wall constructed. The turf was supposed to be repaired. This is what he got. So he's wondering whatever in the world that he's got growing here and how does he repair it. He has used quinclorac, which got the broadleaf, but quack grass or whatever else he's got, he couldn't get controlled. So what are we going to recommend here?
So I would recommend calling that contractor and having them come back and fix this.
Right.
But you have multiple weeds. There's some pigweed in there. There's some velvet leaf in there. There's some barnyard grass in there. You're actually coming to the perfect time. If you could try a broadleaf or non-selective to get rid of everything, get some grass in that you prefer, make sure that it's certified seed, get it planted. I would aerate it, especially since I'm sure that you had a lot of equipment going over that, so I would aerate it, seed it in, and then get it ready for this fall.
So for him to get all these, I mean, he'd be killing the turf too to get rid.
He would, yeah.
Passes for turf.
You would be killing the turf because I would use a non-selective, so you're going to kill everything, but there's not enough turf to worry about right now.
All right. And then maybe compost and.
Well, yeah, you would put some kind of
something
over the top to kind of keep that moisture in, and whether it's straw or something that you purchase. But
all right, excellent. Okay, your next one, she sent a couple of pictures, but this is the real issue. This is a decaying tree stump. This is also a Lincoln viewer. 6 years ago, and of course the big pin oak has obviously lots of roots. Her turf starts beautifully in the start of the season, and then of course the decomposers start in, dead turf, all the shrooms. She's dug, she's added nitrogen. She knows the shrooms help. She's thinking about digging this all up all the way down to 6 inches or so and starting over. What should she do here to try to get this to turn into turf?
I had to have Kyle help a little bit with some of these diseases, but he thinks, and I'm going to agree, that it's summer patch. At first, I just thought it was just maybe some compaction area, and it kind of looks like it's a little bit low, so I thought maybe it would be compacted and the water was sitting there and that was killing the turf, but he thinks maybe there's a little bit of summer patch in there too. Not a lot you can do for that now. To get rid of and to speed up to get rid of those mushrooms, you can add about 1 pound of nitrogen per 1,000 square feet. That will actually speed that up a little bit, but really I would just kind of pull out the dead that you have. I would aerate the area. I would overseed it now with, again, certified seed. Make sure that you're giving it good moisture going into fall and getting it ready.
Right, so again, disease in there that she wasn't really expecting.
Yeah.
All right, and then your final one comes to us from Clarkson. She says this wildflower with a question mark is everywhere. She said weed killer doesn't phase it. So what is this, and what should she use, and when should she control it?
So these are violets. These are a perennial. I personally like violets. I do not care if they're in my lawn, but if you do not want them in your lawn, really the best time of year to treat something like this is in the fall. You want to do it about right after Labor Day. You're gonna use a broadleaf weed killer. It's gonna take multiple applications, and it's probably gonna take multiple years considering how many it looks like is in that picture.
All right, so right now, just cross your fingers and it's almost September.
I enjoy them.
All right. All right, Kyle, your first one comes to us from Sioux Rapids.
Okay.
And this is a pumpkin. You've got one pumpkin plant that has leaves that are doing this.
Yeah, so I think this is squash mosaic or one of the other cucurbit mosaic viruses that, that they can get. Very, we see them on a lot of cucurbits. Potentially it could be herbicide issues, but if it's only on the one plant, I would more lean towards the virus. Not a whole lot to do with it right now. It's going to be there, and so you can get rid of the plant. One thing, whenever we do have virus issues in the garden, we want to prevent those viruses from spreading to the other plants. And so other cucurbits in the garden, especially some of the other squashes or gourds that may be there, melons would not be as much affected by this, but the other squashes and gourds certainly would be. But any insects can also can help spread these viruses too. So try to control any insects that are out there. Maybe go ahead and rogue it out. It's not going to produce near as much fruit as you would hope, but it does look kind of cool. And so if you just wanted a cool little one fun pumpkin leaf, you have that.
I was waiting for this is really cool.
It is.
All right, your next one is actually a cuke. And this one, she's got yellow spots on the lower leaves and they are moving up the plant. What's this?
Could be a few things. I think every cucumber in the country right now has white, yellow spots that are kind of moving across it. I think that this may be angular leaf spot, and I'm primarily basing that on that's the main cucumber disease that I've been seeing as of late. And so it's caused by a bacterial disease that really likes warm, humid conditions like we've been having. There's no chemicals to control these bacterial diseases, so we want to be thinking about our cultural controls, such as watering from the base of the plant so we're not splashing any of that bacteria up onto the other leaves. We can also go ahead and just pull those leaves off that are very severely infected. There's enough growth on the cucumber. It's not going to miss a couple of those really blighted leaves, so I would just pick them off, and otherwise you should get good production from it though.
All right, your next one is cantaloupe. And what happened here, or was cantaloupe maybe, what happened here?
It looks like all of my cucumbers. And so this is one of our wilt diseases. And don't know which one. Could be one of our fungal wilts such as fusarium or verticillium. Also could be a bacterial wilt, which we have them all. And really, this time of year, there's nothing you can do except for trying to baby these plants along. So making sure that they do have adequate water. Again, that fungus or bacteria is clogging up the vascular system. And so if we just can maybe water it twice a day to make sure that there is enough moisture moving through it. But eventually, that disease will be the death of the plant. So enjoy the fruit while you have it.
All right, and your final one is a Valparaiso viewer that has an Anaheim pepper that has this leaf curl stuff going on. He's wondering, is this drift or is this disease-based?
It's a couple of weeks ago, John Porter was talking about his curled leaves bingo card, and could be herbicide drift, could be aphids, would be another possibility. We also do have some viruses, and so there is a pepper leaf curl virus. But again, without seeing more of this plant, it's really hard to give a definite answer. So I'd recommend submitting a sample.
All right, thank you, Kyle. Well, if your squash or other vining plants are starting to droop and look yellow, you might have some unwanted visitors at the base of the vine. Here's Jody to tell us all about squash vine borers and what you can do about them.
If you've grown squash in the past, you know how frustrating it can be when one day your plant looks very healthy and the next day you come out to your vegetable garden and the plants are wilted and collapsed. What has happened to these plants? Well, unfortunately, it is an insect, and it's called the squash vine borer, which is a clear-wing moth as an adult. The squash vine borer moth lays her eggs on cucurbits, which includes summer squash like zucchini, winter squash, some pumpkins, watermelon, and muskmelon. The female lays many small, flattened, round, reddish-brown eggs, and they're laid singly, unlike the squash bug, which lays in clusters. The larvae emerge after 10 to 14 days and bore into the vine, close to the base of the plant. They feed inside the vine for 4 to 6 weeks, where we can't see them. We may be able to see the frass they exude from the vine, which look like a creamy, wettish, until it dries sawdust that gets pushed out of the vine. When you see that, you know that there are larvae in there. So what can you do about the squash vine borer? There are many things, and it really has to do with how much time you would like to invest and what time of year you can concentrate on, because it's not just a one-time thing, and integrated pest management can be done throughout the year. First off, you want to pick varieties that are less susceptible to insects in your garden. You may also want to cover the plants with floating row covers before flowers bloom, before you're needing pollinators to protect some of those vines. Another thing you can do is scout early and put out some plastic yellow bowls that attract the moths, so when you see them, you'll know that egg laying time is going to be near. You also want to know how to identify these squash vine borer moths, because they blend in with many of the day-flying moths and butterflies that we see in our flower garden. They are a reddish color, and they have black forewings and clear hindwings. They have a red abdomen with black spots. If you're interested in treating with an insecticide, the only time this will be effective is during the time where the adult is actively laying eggs, because the larvae feed in the vine. The only time they will contact an insecticide is when it's treated on the vine and gets the caterpillars before they bore into the vine. Other things that you can do are inject Bacillus thuringiensis, or BTK, directly into the vine with a syringe. This has been found to be effective, yet very labor intensive. If you do see the frass and you want to perform surgery, you can take a knife and cut into the vine close to where the frass is and pull out the larvae. They are kind of chunky, cream colored with a dark head. You won't be able to miss them. If you do pull it out, you can save that plant. You just have to put the plant and the vine back and cover it with soil so it re-roots itself and it continue to grow. In the fall, make sure you perform garden sanitation, and also before planting your next squash plants the following year, you may want to till 1 to 6 inches deep and destroy any cocoons that may be overwintering in the garden.
And as Jody said, if you catch it early enough, you do have a chance of saving the plant with a little bit of that knife surgery. All right, Jody, your first two are actually three, I guess, are onions. And the first is Rural Crete. They're wondering why the tops are turning white. And the second two are from Crofton, and they're wondering why they're also getting white. So what do we think here?
Well, they are likely onion thrips that are making those patterns or those blasts there, but the onion should be fine. So unless this is occurring when the bulb is getting bigger, but I would check the bulbs and they're probably fine.
All right, excellent. Your next one is actually a Brainerd viewer. One of the tomato plants was wilting, and then they found this guy and they pulled up the plant. They want to know if they should treat their other tomato plants just in case.
Well, this is a stalk borer. I think they can call it tomato stalk borer, but it will attack other, like 100 different plants with stalks as well. So I probably wouldn't treat the other plants because it would be too late if they're already in there.
All right, or just look for them, right?
Yeah, the only time to treat is if they're actually moving out of one stalk into a bigger stalk.
Okay.
So it's
Yeah, one of those deals. All right, so then we had, 8 million viewers send us pictures of their poor coneflowers. This one's from Crescent, Iowa. Not sure what the caterpillars are. They want to know whether they should treat. Are they good or bad, and what are they going to turn into?
okay. So these turn into Checkerspot butterflies. They're really pretty. This has been on the show a lot. Just like cut those specific leaves off and let them eat, because they kind of eat all together at this stage. But they will turn into beautiful butterflies, I promise. They're just not very good right now.
All right. Terry, your first one is a weed control. This is an Elkhorn viewer. The lawn is 3 years old. It's fescue sod. He tried Bio Advanced all-in-one lawn and weed and crabgrass killer. What is this and what will kill it?
Yeah, so this is Black Medic. I don't know when he treated it. It didn't really say, but this you need to treat either in the spring or in the fall. It's really easy to pull. It kind of goes in kind of some compacted areas and stuff. It seemed to be on the kind of edge of his lawn. So you can pull it if you want. But if you are going to treat it, you can use what you used, but you need to either do it in the spring before it gets hot or in the fall. So it's going to be like an after Labor Day thing.
All right. Your next one is a Pleasantdale viewer, wants to know what this plant is and is it invasive?
No, this is a native. It's Moneywort. It's in the mint family. Motherwort, sorry. It's just...
Yeah.
People make tea out of it. I don't know. Enjoy it.
Your third one is Thistle. This is, she thinks it was Canadian. She dug some buds. She dug the thistles. She dug, and she's got tons and tons of them in a different picture. She wants to know how to treat any new plants that come up. And this is Greeley, Colorado.
So you're actually doing the right thing. I read that you cut the flowers off. You need to do that. Make sure you don't have any more seed in your seed bank. But the reason that they're coming back is because you can tell from the picture that you didn't get the whole root. So these are coming up from the beginning root. I mean, the roots can go down a foot, 2 foot, so they're going to go really far down into the soil. You can treat it with, a herbicide if you want, or continually just kind of keep digging these up, or keep mowing them over. They'll eventually go away.
All right. And your final one is from Sydney. She wants to know what this weed is.
So I've spent a lot of time looking this one up. I think this is black snake root. I would be able to tell better if you let it flower. If you let it flower, they're very kind of insignificant, kind of yellow-green flowers. They are actually a really good pollinator. So if you wanted to keep it and just keep it under control, then you could do that.
All right. Kyle, you have Tomato World. So let's just pile through these right quick. The first is a beefsteak, top of the plant, rest of the plant and all the others are fine. He did remove the diseased portions of this one. Fruits have not been affected, and this is Crofton.
Yeah, it looks like the branches are a little bit yellow. I would suspect it's probably one of our wilt diseases. Again, we have fusariums, we have bacterial wilts as well. Not a whole lot that you can do about it. You did do the right thing with removing the diseased portion, but anything that you can do to just kind of baby these plants along and make sure they are getting adequate water.
All right, your next one is Springfield, strange growth, leaves look curled.
Yeah, I think this is bacterial canker of tomatoes. And so bacterial canker, as the name implies, is caused by a bacterial disease, so fungicides will not do anything. But bacterial canker does tend to cause a flush of adventitious roots, and that's what those strange little bumps are. We also get some firing back of the leaves from the margins with bacterial canker. So I think that's what's going on here. As far as control, that bacteria is going to be in the soil. So next year, be thinking about a resistant variety and really try to rotate your tomatoes to a different spot.
All right, your next one is an heirloom. This is Brandywine. Just doing this, nothing else is. Should she remove this, or is this just a typical heirloom tomato?
It's, heirlooms they're nice. They're good for flavor and things like that, but they are very susceptible to a lot of diseases and pests. So could be a few things. I think this may be tomato mosaic virus, or that, or tobacco mosaic virus as well. Hard to differentiate the two from the pictures. But again, yeah, not really nothing to do. I would probably remove it just to ensure the rest of your tomatoes will survive.
All right, and your final one is fertilized, dusted. They seem to be dying from the ground up. Any idea?
It's been really hot. I would be curious how much treatment you've applied, especially with the heat that we've been having. All of our treatments are salt-based. And the more salts we add to the soil, the more burning that we will tend to get. So I would remove those yellow leaves, and then really, again, as far as next year goes, really try to rotate. Whatever the issue is, it's going to be in the soil, and you want to make sure that you're not growing tomatoes in that same spot again.
Excellent. All right, thanks, Kyle. Well, a good harvest is already on the way out at our garden. We've even started to plan and to plant for the fall. Let's hear more from Terry James out at the Backyard Farmer Garden.
This week in the Backyard Farmer Garden, we are starting our harvest. We have had some really great couple weeks for harvesting. We harvested over 100 pounds of potatoes 2 weeks ago and got those donated to the local food bank. Really fun to see all those little potatoes come out of the ground. I had some kids here from a 4-H group, help get them out of the ground, wash them off, and got them donated. So that was a lot of fun. We're having a lot of our tomatoes get ready. We've probably seen, 20, 30 pounds of just cherry tomatoes alone come out of our garden and off to the food banks. We're really excited about seeing the produce numbers go up from our harvest. We're seeing some fantastic colors of our flowers. A few of them are fading in the sun, but we're deadheading them and getting them ready for that fall splurge again. We're also looking at planting our fall gardens. We've counted back from when our last frost date is here in Lincoln, and we're starting to get some of those quick germinating and quick growing produce. So we have some squash that's going to be going in, some peas, some lettuces, all those great fall crops. So stop by the Backyard Farmer Garden and check it out.
And right now it is time for lightning. Kyle, your first one. Caterpillars are causing sooty mold on the coneflowers. Should you treat for the sooty mold?
No.
In Omaha, we have somebody who has planted their cukes in the same spot every single year, but they always get spots on the leaves and die out. Should they rotate the planting?
Yes, they should.
This is a York viewer who has bagged mulch spread around the annuals, and then they burned sort of on the bottom. Is that a disease that might have been coming in the bags of the mulch?
Unlikely. I would be curious, maybe if the mulch was treated with anything, or where the mulch was sourced from. Could be some sort of chemical injury.
All right. This is a Nebraska City viewer who has a maple that has some sort of scorch on the leaves. They're wondering, is that bacterial or heat, or is there a way to tell?
The only way to tell is by submitting a sample to the diagnostic clinic. It's most likely environmental leaf scorch, though, because of the heat that we've had.
All right, and that is excellent for lightning round. I'm not going to give you another one because you're not going to be able to answer it.
Well, maybe.
Okay, Terry, your first one is a Grand Island viewer who wants to know when to treat their nutsedge. Apparently, they have all sorts of nutsedge already.
You're too late.
So, since they're too late, when do they treat it?
You're supposed to treat it before the longest day of the year. You can continually pull it. It actually then takes all the energy from its little nutlets, so it's going to take a while, but just pull it. Good therapy.
All right, and then we have an Omaha viewer who wants to know what sort of chemical works on nutsedge.
You would use what they call sedge hammer, but again, that needs to be done before the longest day of the year.
All right, this is a Burnsville, Minnesota viewer who has been told that turf will just go dormant in drought and then recover. Is that true of all types of turf?
No.
All right. This is an Aurora viewer that wants to overseed, but the lawn is full of violets. Should they kill them now?
No.
This is a Columbus viewer. Sod went down and then it turned brown because it was so hot the next day. Will it recover if they water it?
It depends.
Good.
Yeah.
All right, Jody. So we had 3 people actually ask us this question. 3 different viewers sent us this one, and they're saying, where are the bagworms this year? They were all set to spray for bagworms.
Well, they could have actually died with the extreme cold we had on Valentine's Day.
All right. This is a viewer who lives on a sandpit lake and wonders whether milky spore is effective for Japanese beetles.
I'm going to say that depends, but no.
All right. So we have a viewer from York. This is also a York viewer. Wants to know, when can you use a systemic for Japanese beetles?
Depends what you're using it on. If it's an ornamental like roses or flower, then it's around Mother's Day. You cannot use it on linden trees.
All right. This is a Clarkson viewer who wants to know if spinosad or spinosad controls grasshoppers.
It can, yes.
All right. This viewer wants to know if the lawn is treated for grubs this year, will the Japanese beetles return next year?
Probably because the adults can fly.
All right. Nice job, all. Clearly, this group knows how to do lightning, right?
Terry, did you win?
I did.
Harry won.
Yeah, she might have had advance notice. All right, we'll go through plants of the week here right quick, and this is a really interesting one. So the little yellow one here is Henry Hyler sweet coneflower, and the ray flowers are actually tubular. This is in our backyard farmer garden. Stands upright. It's one of the ones that does not spread like a lot of the coneflowers can. This is Calypso coriander, which is a cilantro, which I detest, but the flowers are beautiful, and you can actually harvest this for like 3 weeks. It does not bolt quite as quickly. And this is so cool. This is red noodle long beans. So wrapped all around the vase here. And these are in our backyard farmer garden, and they're extremely edible. And if you had a big vase, you can just imagine how gorgeous this would be before you chopped them all up and ate them. That was too much fun, and I knew the beans would be gone by next week because it's so hot. All right, Jody, your first 3 pictures are of a ponderosa pine. And this is a Lincoln viewer. The pine looks beautiful, but then if you look at the next 2 pictures, you see this pitch. They think that they were told nothing's wrong. What's the deal
Oh,
here?
there's something wrong. This is Zimmerman pine moth.
Yeah.
And you will want to treat, actually it's perfect time because at the beginning of August, so the adults will emerge from here. It's going to be a moth and they'll start laying eggs. And so you want to treat the trunk here with a permethrin or a bifenthrin. Really get that so you can stop and slow down this problem. And then again in April, if any eggs hatch, you want to get those too.
All right, excellent. And then this is an Omaha viewer. They have an oak, a big oak that's pretty sparse interior leaves, and then they found these on the leaves, and they're wondering if they should treat the sparse oak for these things, or if this has anything to do with the sparseness of the big tree.
Yeah, it would be unrelated. If you need like an arborist to come look at your tree, that's going to be something different. This is going to be a gall. It's an oak leaf, oak midge. I don't know.
It's a gall.
Gall midge on an oak leaf. Those 4 words. That's what it is in some order.
And nothing to treat.
There's no treatment for the galls.
All right. Your final one, and we actually had 2 or 3 people that sent us pictures of burning bushes right now, either doing this, turning red a little early, or a little bit of whiteness to them, or a little bit of this shot hole looking stuff. Do we know what this is or have any ideas?
Well, something that's very common with burning bush are going to be spider mites, so go and check that out. Sometimes there'll be webbing. You can knock the leaves on some like white paper and see what comes out. They'll look like little spiders, but it happens when it's very hot, and it's very hot.
And then use a miticide or something?
You might just want to wait till next year, depending on how. Yeah, just hose off the plant and cool it down.
All right, and your final two are actually an Underwood, Iowa viewer. And her plants have had these tiny little flies on them for years. They've gone through all sorts of sticky traps. He thinks it's because she waters all the time.
That's exactly why. That's exactly what's happening. So these yellow sticky traps. These are fungus gnats. They are adult, but the eggs, the larvae, and the pupa are developing in the overwatered soil, so they need to be dried out. Dry out the soil.
All right. Terry, these are all diseases, and you got them because Kyle's list was so long. So your first one here is Gretna. They're wondering, is this brown patch or some other fungus? It's almost the same spots as last year. They did aerate and overseed with high quality fescue bluegrass mix. It's only been in the last 2 seasons.
Yes. So we think that this one is summer patch, and there's not a lot you can do with it. Overseed.
It might be brown patch as well.
Okay, sorry.
It's one of the patches.
Yeah, but
It's one of the patches, but still not a lot you can do with it. Just overseed, aerate, and don't do a lot with it.
And then brown patch can also be controlled by applying a little bit of nitrogen, can help speed up the growth. The other thing that you can do is apply a fungicide, like an azoxystrobin fungicide at the first sign of disease, and that will often help.
Perfect.
Thanks, Kyle.
Perfect. This is why we have, we all can do each other's jobs if we have to, especially when you're pinch hitting. Your next one comes to us actually from Gehring, Terry, and the turf is dying. What's this?
Okay, so this one also is summer patch.
Or brown?
Summer patch.
Yeah.
But I also think that there's some traffic pattern problem with this and some compaction. So I think, and then in Gehring, I know that you have not been cooling off like you normally do, so you're probably seeing a lot more diseases out there than you normally do. So again, not a lot you can do with it. If you do have any traffic issues, you may want to aerate it this fall.
All right. Your next two are a viewer that put in RTF, and he wonders, he's seeing all these yellowing circles and spots in the months. It sounds like he's doing all the right things to manage his turf. So what do we think here?
So this one we think is brown patch. He did say that he collects his clippings. We actually recommend letting the clippings go back into the turf so that you can actually add extra nitrogen, which is actually good for this. However, if you do see it coming, then collect the clippings so that you're not spreading that inoculum around. But again, not a lot to do with it. I would probably overseed again, aerate it, and then try again for next year.
Cross your fingers. And your final one is Hastings. Oh, look what's on the buffalo grass.
So this is actually Kyle's sample. So this is some kind of slime mold. It's kind of pretty. If you like these, then just watch it like move across your yard. Keep watering it so you can watch it. Otherwise, just go out there. I would go out there with a hose and spray it to make it go away.
Okay, Thanks, Terry. Your first picture is a very bad tree. This is a pin oak, a big one. They're wondering, they've seen carpenter ants in here. They see this. Kyle, what do we think here?
So it looks like it's a type of Ganoderma mushroom that's kind of growing from the base. That's a sign that the tree is not doing all that well. If you have a lot of carpenter ants in there as well, they're probably adding to the decay. So I would probably run, not walk, to an arborist to figure out what's going on with this tree, especially if there's any structures nearby. But this is definitely a problem tree that you will want to take care of sooner rather than later.
All right. Your next one comes to us from Scotts Bluff. And his roses keep doing this for 2 years. They haven't bloomed. He thinks maybe this is associated with a hailstorm.
It potentially could be. Whenever I see red leaves on a rose, I tend to think about rose rosette. Rose rosette disease can also cause the blooms not to go, but that would be my suspicion. Not a whole lot of good treatments aside from pruning at ground level and kind of starting fresh.
All right. Your next one is a papillion viewer. 2 pictures here. This is a Firelight hydrangea, which is one of the panicles. A few yellow leaves over the past few days. Anything to worry about?
I wouldn't worry about them at all, nope.
All right, and your final one is spots on a different hydrangea. This is in Herman, Nebraska, and what do we think this one is?
I think the large white bleached areas, I think that's Sunscald. It's been hot and sunny, and there's also some smaller kind of reddish spots on there as well, and I think that may be a Cercospora leaf spot. Really nothing to do with either of those, just kind of deal with it for the rest of the year, unfortunately.
All right, thank you, Kyle. Well, we've talked about the millions of new gardeners as a result of the pandemic, and we started the year with some helpful tips. For our second feature tonight, John Porter comes back to help you with some new tips for gardening success.
Well, earlier in the season, we talked about all those new gardeners that are out planting their tomatoes, cucumbers, and peppers. All those 16 million new gardeners last year, and even more this year. We're humming along mid-season now. Those tomatoes and peppers and cucumbers and everything else should be growing along just fine. But there are problems that can creep up. Diseases, insects, other pests, and even understanding how to fertilize and when to harvest. All of those things that are things that you should think about. And they might not be firsthand knowledge to those brand new gardeners. So today we're going to talk briefly about what to look for when you're looking for diseases and pests, and then a little bit about how to take care of them or figure out what's going on so you know what to do. For example, we're looking at these beautiful healthy tomatoes right beside me here. Lush, green, not a lot of problems. What we're doing here is managing diseases. There's a few spots here that I see, and one of the best things you can do as a new gardener is to come out and look at your garden on a daily or at least a few times a week basis and look for things like spots. So I see a spot right here on this leaf, and it's just as simple as pulling it off right there, and I've taken care of the problem. But we're keeping these plants nice and healthy just by monitoring and taking care of those kinds of things. Now we have some tomatoes that might not be quite as lucky. We can see some more damage going on here, and we want to figure out exactly what's going on. So we notice that the damage is on the bottom part of the plant here. So that could either be a disease that's splashed up from the soil, and a mulch will help reduce that. But we want to look, do we see spots on the leaves? So we see some crisping, some dry, some spots here, and that's usually indicative of a disease. It could be fungal or bacterial, we don't know quite yet. If we don't see spots, if we're just seeing yellowing on the leaves, on the bottom leaves, that could actually be indicative of something like a nutrient deficiency, usually nitrogen. And so we want to look for those spots just to be sure. Now we can take a look at these spots. Are they big blotches? Are they little tiny spots? And we can actually take pictures and we can identify them. We can drop them off a sample at our extension office or send pictures to our extension office. Or you can use our diagnostic network to be able to figure out what exactly is going on with your plants. And you want to do that before you treat. You want to know what exactly is going on, or you want to know what to treat it with, because you could treat it with the wrong thing and actually end up damaging your plant or not being able to use it. Here we have some cucumbers, and we see these spots here. If we see open leaves, spots on the leaves, we could have some insect feeding going on, but there's also some angular leaf spot, which is a disease going on here. So it's important to be able to identify the problem so you can treat it appropriately. And there's lots of ways you can treat diseases and insects, either organically or conventionally. The key is finding out what it is and then how to treat it. Now, another thing to keep in mind, we're in the heat of the summer, and that can actually cause a lot of issues with our plants too. We're seeing lots of things not maturing or things not getting pollinated. It's just so hot that it's sort of taking out the pollen and is slowing things down production-wise. So keep that in mind. If your garden isn't full and lush and producing like you want to, it'll pick right back up again in the fall. So like I said, we have all these diseases and insects going on. What we want to do is get out and look around the garden, see what's going on, take some pictures, some good quality pictures, or take a sample to your local extension office. You can find those in every county in Nebraska. You can also send your picture into our digital diagnostics network, or find your extension office online, either on Facebook, on website, email, all those different ways you can send in your pictures, or you can send it to us right here on Backyard Farmer, and we'll take care of that.
Thanks, John. Those are great tips for our new gardeners, as well as good reminders for the experienced ones. All right, Jody, your first one comes to us from Council Bluffs. They want to know what is on the tomato leaves. And then your second one comes to us from Broken Bow, and they want to know what's on the tomato leaves, and they think it looks like a clump of dirt.
It is kind of, but it's really cool. They are called like little pots from potter wasps. So there's a bunch of caterpillars and a wasp developing in there, solitary. It's good, no problem.
Always
Enjoy
good.
it.
Very cool. All right, your next one comes to us from Carney. Something did this along the sidewalk overnight. The soil appears crumbly. Should they be concerned?
No, it's a cicada killer wasp, but if it's by the sidewalk, it shouldn't be too bad. Not too worried like about ruining things in the landscape. But if you do want to treat it, you have to treat the individual nest, like that hole, at night.
At night. Okay, excellent. All right, your next one is an ID. They found this, they found two of them actually, and they want to know what it is and what should they do about this?
They're called cow killer ants, but they're actually a female wingless wasp. Don't do anything. They usually stay outside and they're solitary. They try not to bother us, we try not to bother them.
Do they kill cows?
They do not kill any cows. I mean, they're not even ants. Right, but
All right, and your final one is a Lincoln viewer. Simply wants to know what kind of a fly this is.
yes, this is a picture wing fly.
A picture wing.
Yeah, because it's got the different colors on the wings. It's a decomposer type thing, likes rotting things.
Okay, thank
Does
you.
no harm.
All right, on that note. All right, your first three pictures, Terry, are a viewer that had some regrading done around the house. They reseeded the brome. It's doing well, about 8 inches high, but now this has come in and it's growing by leaps and bounds. The stem is really stiff and it's only growing where they reseeded the brome.
So I think this is just brome on steroids. You can actually ID brome by, if you look at the leaf blade, there's always like this little indentation kind of towards the stem area that looks like an M or a W, depending on which way you're looking at it. So you can ID it if it's brome.
All right, so pull it apart down there
Yep.
where the stem attaches to the leaf.
Yep.
All right. Your next one is a Shelton, Nebraska viewer. 4-year-old yard was put in a sod. They do live on a lake, sandy soil. They've had these odd spots start showing up in their yard. They do pre-emerge, but what is this?
So I think this is orchard grass. You can dig this out if you have it. It looked like you kind of had some kind of spots on another picture that I saw. Or you would have to treat it, if you wanted to treat it, with a non-selective and then overseed.
All right, and your final one comes to us from Columbus. This annoying weed has taken over. What is this?
I think this is creeping red fescue. So again, you'll have to use non-selective if you want to get rid of it, or overseed and just try to get whatever the turf is that you want, just to kind of snuff it out.
Snuff. All right. Kyle, you have two pictures. This is an 8-year-old tree that has kind of a compromised structure. Fruit trees here. This is in Axtell. What do we think here?
Yeah, could be a few different things. The first picture, it looked kind of like there was maybe some gummy ooze coming from that black canker, which makes me think Fireblight. But especially with this much injury down by the base, I would probably start thinking about a replacement tree.
All right. Your next one is a Wahoo viewer who has 2-year-old or young peaches and apples, 2 years old. What do we have?
Rust.
Okay. And we treat.
We treat that in the spring. So when the tree is flowering, that's when you would want to apply a fungicide. But it's pretty much every apple, every pear that we see right now looks like it's just been spray painted orange, just like this.
All right. We have about 10 seconds for this one. This is a Crete viewer. Leaves appear to have blisters and are wilting, turning red, and drying up.
The blisters are also rust. We can see those pustules. As far as the leaves that are drying up, I zoomed in, kind of looked like the petioles were black, and that's also a sign of fire blight. So I think multiple things going on there.
All right.